meeting from the, what was the date?
Third.
The 3rd, from
Tuesday.
December 3rd.
I think you
To
should announce to the crowd, too.
To endorse the plans if it is voted on by the board. So, does
I'd like to make a
anyone...
point of order.
Oh, okay, yes.
Okay. I have some concerns regarding the business before us, which I'll share in a moment. I also have concerns which I believe are consistent with a point of order involving one of the board members in terms of a prior business relationship with a party that is involved in, or has been involved in this project, and that's Dover Land Surveying. The board has other business before it. One of the board members is an applicant for one of those projects, 106 Main Street. And Dover Land Surveying was, in fact, the surveying company that was used, is no longer being used by that applicant for 106 Main Street. The applicant is Peter Chipman. So I believe that Peter should recuse himself from participation in actions of this board relative to this project.
The conflict to me seems a little tenuous, but, I mean, do
Can
you...
I respond, Steve?
Yes, please
And
do.
I just discussed this with Jeff outside. He did give me the courtesy of a heads up on this. I have an ethics predetermination on any action on that's been on file for almost 2 years with the town clerk's office. I don't find that I have a conflict. It's unfortunate what's happened with Dover Land Surveying, but, you know, the issue at hand is looking at MyLaws that are stamped by a consulting engineer, Mr. Howard Millard, and I guess a new land surveyor. So at this point, while I appreciate you bringing it up, Jeff, I think not only did I get an ethics determination quite a while ago, but, you know, secondarily, you know, it's unfortunate what happened. I'm a victim to a great expense and an expensive time, and that's nothing much else I can say on the matter.
Yeah, just an additional comment for the chair. That is certainly Mr. Chipman's right to remain a participant in the business at hand, but I felt it was worth bringing that point.
It is worth bringing it up. I mean, if it's something that bothers you like that, I mean, it's always worth bringing it up. It's always good for the board to know that if there's something that somebody feels is might be an issue. Personally, I think that, as Peter stated, that more than one person got caught up in the problem, Dover land surveyors. I don't think anyone chose them deliberately because they could sneak something through, and I honestly think that everyone got caught up in the same manner that Mr. Quiglieri and Mr. Chipman did.
And I'm not suggesting that Mr. Chipman's involvement with Dover Land Surveying was anything but unfortunate, but the fact that it was a prior business relationship, at least in my understanding, would require that a board member recuse. But I respect Mr. Chipman's decision, and so we can move forward.
Can we also address other, since it's a continuation of a meeting from the other night, as well on other ethics concerns that not only Mr. Palumbo brought up, but I think it was initiated by Mr. Byron, and that's subsequent to the concerns about Tom Houston reviewing plans because I am a board member. I took the time to send a letter to the attorney of the day with the State Ethics Commission. She called me back, as many of you probably have dealt with them before, or I suggest that you do as an elected member. You have that ability to get pretty quick turnaround. And as a result, she clarified that so long as there wasn't an open hearing when when the board is deliberating on a contract, then I would not have a conflict. And she gave me the form number that at that time I would need to file. But since you brought it up and we want to be squeaky clean on this board for integrity purposes, I wanted to follow up because I got the answer back yesterday from them.
Thank you. If I might, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to follow up, Peter, you said that you had a ethics determination on file for a couple of years.
Yes.
Could you help me? It would really help me if you could tell me what was in the.
What happened at that time was because the principal of Dover Land Surveying had been doing business in front of this board for many years, which is kind of the reason I chose him, not only here, but I was used to having him practice before me when I was on the Board of Health
Yep.
for several years. I wanted to make sure that it was okay for me to act and actually hire him. And so at that time, I went forward and got an ethics determination.
Okay.
And it's in Sean Dooley's office.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
So I definitely want to get on to our business at hand, but I just was confused by what you were saying, the advice. I didn't really have an issue with the Tom Houston thing, but I'm confused based on the advice you got, because you do have an open public hearing, and we were not negotiating a contract, but basically voted on whether or not to extend a contract, of which you were a voting member of. So
I think I made the motion.
doesn't that fit into the conflict that they said you shouldn't have done?
Well, going forward, we'll pay closer attention to that. That's,
Maybe what we should do, Steve, at the next meeting is retake that vote with Peter recusing just to, I mean, I guess we would have majority anyway because we all
Yes.
voted for it, but, I mean, just for the record, it might be good to straighten that out, clear that out.
Good
Like
point.
saying, if we
Yeah.
want to keep squeaky clean, you are meeting both of those conditions. We discussed the contract and you are in an open hearing, so.
Right, but, I didn't even think of it as a concern until it was brought up, and I jumped on it the very next day after Walter brought it up initially.
Right.
So,
Well, I want to make sure that it's okay with the board because, since Jeff brought up the idea of Peter having a business dealing with Dover land surveyors, whether or not either of you also have any kind of an issue with it.
I guess I feel our business at hand tonight no longer concerns Dover Land Surveying.
It's the way I feel about it.
So although I do feel that if it comes to the topic of Dover Land Surveying and we're discussing that might be a possible conflict and he may want to recuse himself. But I don't feel that that's what this is about anymore tonight.
All right.
I agree.
Okay, good. So these have been reviewed by Tom. Tom sent an email saying that he sees nothing significant in here, and there was a rationale for not redoing the plans because he spoke to O'Driscoll about why the plans were not actually changed if there was any kind of a change in measurement. Then he had a complete explanation. So unless there's unless we're going to get into further discussion about it, does anyone want to make a motion to endorse the plans?
I
If
do want to
might,
discuss.
It would seem that we ought to take Mr. Houston's offer to talk with him at face value and place a call just to confirm that what we heard prior to the meeting, that his recommendation is to sign these. I really would like, because it's one thing to have an email in front of you, it's another thing to have him say, I recommend that you sign these. And I would like to hear him say, I recommend that you sign these.
I actually
and
want
he
to.
put his phone number on the thing, I think, for
Yeah,
that
I actually
purpose.
want to take a step back because we also received advice earlier today from legal counsel. And Tom's review and comments on the drawings was one of probably 3 or 4 different pieces of advice that were given to us as part of that counsel. So that was one. One was receipt of an updated affidavit form in all of the nuances that she spelled out in quite a granular way
Yeah.
that needed to be presented.
On this form, yeah.
Yep, and in addition to asking for a new date to be added to the drawings to reflect a revision that has been made to the plan. So those are the top 3 things I pulled from her advice to us. So that would be my first point of discussion. The second thing is from Tom's email, which literally came in at 5:30 while I was in the middle of commuting my daughter around to events I had to get her to tonight. So I haven't had a chance to fully review it. I skimmed it super quick. It's quite a lengthy email. Tom does have a little bit of concern, and we can talk with him about it. He feels he's not quite sure about the standards of professional survey practice. He's a little concerned about O'Driscoll just taking a plan and signing off on it, although he's had that conversation with O'Driscoll. Tom's going on record saying he cannot advise us with respect to the standards of professional survey practice regarding that survey.
Well, did he speak to Driscoll after he sent that email? That's what
No,
I'm
this
not certain.
email is, yes.
Well, I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, this was after he I think it's after he spoke to O'Driscoll.
Right, that wasn't clear in the email, so.
So the other thing is he goes and makes several comments about each of the sheets he reviewed pretty quickly. He said not at length. And I think the one thing that stuck out to me is that on a couple sheets there were some minor revisions, not anything to do with the stamp or the seal, you know, in terms of a shape of a patio, some labeling, concrete pad and walk. My opinion is if these are anything but the exact same drawings that we made a decision on, then we need a full engineering review of them in a proper time frame that's not zipped before us an hour before this meeting when we're all commuting in our cars to try and get here. Unless they are the exact same drawings, all that's changed is a stamp, title block, and a date, but that's not what Tom's saying. I don't know why any revisions would have been made at all from our site decision to these.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman?
Mm-hmm.
I understand your point. It would seem that a phone call to Mr. Houston could clear that up as to whether he still is concerned about those issues or would still, in the face of those small revisions, recommend signing. And I think we ought to ask him.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
I mean, I think collectively, there are enough reasons to be concerned right now, my opinion, in terms of the initial survey work that was done, that's now been stamped by another surveyor, a licensed surveyor, properly licensed surveyor this time, and the timing of the surveyor stamping the drawing, the question as to the professional engineer in terms of when the professional engineer, Mr. Millar, had signed this drawing. You would need to go back to the last revision on this drawing to infer a date. That's the only way to really determine what date Mr. Millar may have signed this drawing. And that date isn't very consistent with the survey information. It's just another piece of information, given the problem with the initial survey information and some of these concerns relative to the date, questions that I have in terms of the level of supervision that was provided, that I think Mr. Houston should have some adequate time to understand what level of supervision was provided in terms of making sure that not just the survey work, but drainage calculations. There's a lot that goes into this type of planning and this type of engineering. It's not just a matter of the survey work. And I think because, and you know, we were asked to do this because evidently there's a potential business action that the applicant would like to proceed with next week. I think because of that, this board said that we were willing to convene this evening, and I think in good faith we've done that. What's come back from our engineer and town council, although I think it addresses some of the concern, I'm not sure it addresses enough of the concern, I guess.
All right, I'm going to
Yeah.
place the call to Tom. Does anyone have his number? I
Yeah,
don't.
it's in the
Here you
email,
go.
but
Here you go.
just to
Yeah.
clarify, he does say that Al and himself phoned Mr. Driscoll together and talked to him on speakerphone. So I do think this was sent after that
Have
conversation.
New phones put into my, new numbers put into my phone.
And, you know, I think another piece of information which
Oh, I gotta see if I can turn on, oh, there it is.
is independent of this board is the fact that there is an appeal by the town of the ZBA decision due to irregularities, and the fact that that's still outstanding. involving this project.
PSC, Professional Services Corporation.
I guess that's not the one. Call the cell.
What number do you have?
Well, I called,
You said to call 781-974-3602.
It is 7:30 on Fridays.
it might have been, I don't know if it's his home phone or what.
We officially opened the meeting.
Yes.
Well, it's a continuation of the other meeting.
Let him know he's on speaker on
On TV.
TV.
Yeah, well.
Hi, this is Tom Houston.
Hi, Tom, this is Stephen McLean.
Stephen, how are you?
Oh, very good. We're in the meeting. You're on speaker.
Yeah.
So there's several questions for you from members of the board.
Yep.
So let me start with Michelle on my right here, and
Okay.
because there were questions about your comments in your email.
Yeah.
I just had a few, Tom. The first was, my understanding is that you had some concerns about the standards of professional survey practice, and basically were telling us that you couldn't advise, I think, on the fact that the survey plan was just restamped and not redrawn.
Yeah, I had. I don't want to be in a position of giving definitive advice on that. You know, not being registered as a surveyor, I haven't really studied the requirements for the conduct of land surveys. I mean, I understand what we would typically get as a product land survey, but I don't want to be in a position of legally advising the board what is or is not acceptable.
My second question was, it looks like you had a chance to quickly review the drawings. I guess I wanted a little bit of input on feedback, like, how did you get through all the plans? Did you feel like you had adequate time to review them? And within...
I didn't get through all the plans. I cited in my email those drawings that I did have a chance to look at, and there were fundamentally no significant differences in the plans that we reviewed and the plans that are being presented for signature. The additions or deletions were obvious. The new information from the new surveyor was added to the drawings. Mr. Millard's stamp was added to the drawings. The references to Overland Survey were deleted from the drawings. The allegedly fraudulent signatures and seals were deleted from the drawings. So, other than those obvious changes, drawings appeared to be identical to the plans that we had reviewed. I think I reviewed the cover sheet, the existing conditions plan, the layout plan, the grading plan, the utility plan, and I think that's about all I had time to review. But I saw no differences except for those key things of the addition of the new surveyor, the deletion of references to the other firm, and that type of thing. There were a couple of very minor things, the patio beside the building that changed shape, and I think there was one note on one drawing that was different. But other than that, the drawings that I looked at were identical.
So, and that was my last question, was things that you found that were not relevant to either the title block, the surveying signature, or the engineer's signature and stamp. you did pick up a couple small things, the shape of a patio, some labeling here and there. So
Yes, I kind of presume that patio, I'm guessing that patio shape might have been a design review board issue, and somebody may have forgotten to list that as a revision on the drawing or something. I don't know why it's different, but it's different.
and that was my question. Was it clearly noted on the drawing as a revision from, I guess my concern is when Al was here Tuesday night, we were told that this is, the exact same set of drawings with just a different stamp on them. But if they're not the exact same drawings, and in your short time of reviewing them, you found even if they're minor changes, are they clear for us to see tonight? Because if we're going to sign off on a set of plans that have changes that we've never looked at, that just concerns me a little bit. Even if they're minor in nature, we should be signing off on a set of plans that we've done a site plan decision for.
Yeah, I mean, the two things that I spotted, and they were only 2 things out of the 5 or so drawings that I reviewed. They're pretty de minimis in nature. I don't know how or why they changed, but it may be a matter of when they reprinted some drawings, some update made that somebody wasn't aware of, or I don't know. I can't explain it. A couple of minor differences, but nothing of substance.
I'm done with my questions.
Okay. Do you have any more questions, Michelle? Jeff, do you have some questions for Tom?
I'm trying to separate the technical from the procedural. Tom, in terms of the history here with this project,
Yes.
what is your understanding as far as the surveying activities that have taken place, as well as the engineering oversight that has taken place? And I believe the engineering component also includes the stormwater analysis and calculations and such. So,
That's correct.
So can you tell us what you believe to be the history here? I know you may not have all the information in front of you with dates and such, but to the best of your ability, because I'm very confused on basically who did what when. That's one of my
the
fundamental
original
concerns.
set of drawings, which, if you have the drawings, they had the original dates.
Yes.
I know they were revised way back in July, so they've been around for a while. The original drawings, of course, were prepared by this Evan Wilmar at Dover Land Surveying, who we later learned was not registered as either an engineer or a surveyor, and he was using the signatures and seals of an engineer and a surveyor who, at least initially, represented that use was not authorized. I guess there's been some change in Mr. Millard's position on that. But way back sometime in the spring or summer, the drawings were originally prepared. Overland Surveying taking the lead, so they must have done the field survey work and the design work. The drawings we got were, more of those signatures and seals which have been alleged, and I guess he's now been indicted for fraudulent use of them. We did get way back then a drainage report that was also signed and stamped by Howard Millard. I can't absolutely tell you that signature was a genuine signature, but it did not look like those signatures that were reproduced on the drawings. It did look like an actual signature. So we did get that drainage report. So I think since July, there has been no changes to the drawings. We compared the last set that we reviewed, which were dated July 7th of this year, to the plan set that is being presented tonight for endorsement. And except the differences between the July 7th and the current set are those that I included in my email for those plan sheets that I was able to look at. So the only thing that's new since July, they added 2 sheets which reproduced the board's decision, which is required with sheets 1A and 1B. And then the only other significant addition is the signature, seal, and certification of the new land survey. So what happened there, and as I said in my memo, the surveyor stated that he had done the requisite property research. He had gone out in the field and had set up on bounds and other property markers and had found no significant difference. I think he said found only minor differences. And he said that where the bearings and distances on abutting plans of record agreed with the plan that Dover Land Survey had prepared, he did not think it was appropriate to change those bearings, the distances, for minor deviations observed in the field. I'm assuming, I have no idea, but just as a way of example, if a property line measured 700 feet and his instrument measured 700.02 foot, he would have considered that minor. I don't know what specific differences he found, but anyway, he said minor differences, and it was his opinion that the plan should not be changed. I talked to Glenn Reed, who is actually part of our Norfolk Planning Board team. He's been listed as part of our team since we began work in Norfolk. We have not actually previously had occasion to use him, but I did talk to Glenn, and he said that if he were surveying a plan, not necessarily resurveying a plan, which is kind of a unique circumstance here, but if he were surveying a property and he found what this fellow did, which is that it was substantially consistent with all kinds of plans of record, and the field differences were very minor, he too might file a plan that didn't change those property bearings, the distances, but he would have included notes and or sketches on the plan showing the discrepancy. In other words, he would have said, this bearing is 700 feet, but the bound is offset by 300 foot or whatever it is. So he would have explained it as opposed to just making the decision to hold it. But, I think Glenn is pretty meticulous in what he does, which is why we have him on the team. I also discussed this with Tim Jacobs, who is a member of our firm. He fundamentally is a structural engineer. That's been the bulk of his practice. He is licensed as a land surveyor also. And Tim pretty much concurred with Glenn, which is that, the most conservative way of doing this would be to note discrepancies on the drawing, but it also happens that when you resurvey something, you find it to be fundamentally correct. So, I guess I don't take strong issue with the surveyor's decision not to change the bearings or distances of the property line for minor differences, providing that they are in fact minor. And I have no way of knowing what that is. But I did talk with this fellow on the phone. His tone did appear to be professional. Did appear to understand everything. Beyond that, it's kind of hard to say.
More?
Yeah, so, Tom, could you describe the procedure as far as the stormwater calculations and what information you received, from who, and whether you had follow-up communication and information from the more recent professionals involved in the project?
Well, the drainage report that we received was signed and sealed by Howard Millard. I can't attest as to the genuineness of that signature, but I do know that it did not resemble the signature that appeared on the drawing. So, I don't want to say I'm a handwriting expert, but it kind of looked like a genuine signature. I didn't at the time have a genuine signature to compare it. So, it looked like it was it was an actual signed, an actual signature beside his professional seal. That was on the cover of the report that we received.
So, in other words, it wasn't a digital stamp and signature, which was, I think, the essence of the issue in terms of the fraudulent activity by the original surveyor, correct? Is that your understanding?
Yes, the signature, it did not resemble the signature that was electronically reproduced.
Walter?
If we stick with the technical for Tom, then sure, I'll defer to Walter, I guess, at this point.
Well, Tom, I think my question comes down to really the bottom line as to, despite all the reviews that you've had and the caveats that you've embedded into your email and the discussions that we've just listened to, what is your position on whether you would recommend that the board should sign these Mylars tonight or not?
Well, I think town council's advice was it was within the administrative discretion of the board as to what standards of submission you would accept. The route that was taken on the 108 Main Street project is clearer in the sense that an entirely new firm was brought in and they redid everything. I don't know the weight to which, this is a non-technical thing, but what weight the board should accord to the role that Mr. Millard played in supervising the preparation of the original drawings. An engineer, if he or she is going to stamp a set of drawings, is supposed to supervise their preparation in addition to signing them at the end of the process. So if I'm going to have somebody working for me and I'm going to stamp something, I'm going to tell that person, look, these are the critical things when you do this. Make sure that you double check that property line is awfully close to an abutting utility law, whatever. In other words, I'd supervise the work in addition to checking it at the end. So we know Mr. Millard checked it at the end. I think by stamping it, he is saying, in fact, that he supervised the preparation of the drawings there. Yes,
But Tom, could I ask you a question? You double-checked the drainage calculations yourself, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay, so you verified with the numbers that they came up with. Is that correct?
I think the drainage calculations are adequate for this site because there's a lot of buffer on this site. The water table is pretty deep. The soils are very permeable.
Well, which site are you talking about? We've got two of them in front of us here, Tom.
I'm talking about the Pondville Plaza.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I didn't have time to look at the other side at all.
Yeah.
But we're talking about Pondville Plaza.
Yeah.
So, I don't think the drainage system is going to fail. Certainly the drainage report is not done as meticulously as some engineers do, but I think our ultimate conclusion was that the facilities would be okay for the site.
Okay, Peter has a question for you also.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, how you doing? I'm sure there's other things you'd rather be doing on Friday night, but thanks.
This is very important. I'm pleased to help.
Thanks for being there. I do have a question on it. I mean, basically being a layman in this business, despite 16 years, it's still all Greek to me. I rely on not only you, but Gino's direction when it comes to, decisions, as we should, because that's what we pay you for. And I guess based on your recommendation, and I think the only outstanding item was at that time that was that you had you wanted to have the regulatory wet stamps and signatures on the final plans. I didn't see any outstanding items. One, obviously, the intervening problem is separate, but I mean, as the review engineer, did you have any problems with the engineering itself?
I thought the site plan was adequate. I think when we reached the position that the wet stamps and everything were required, we were operating under the misunderstanding that these people were actually doing the work and had just kind of taken a shortcut, and on the first submission to the board had used electronic signatures. And not completely sure you can't do that, but just to be sure, I said the final set of the drawings has to have wet stamp. Now, after that, we came to understand that the surveyor certainly, and questionably Mr. Millard, was not actually involved in the project at all. So our advice that the only issue was the wet stamps was kind of operating under the misunderstanding that these people were actually working on the project when they weren't. So.
Right, but I guess as a review engineer, I'm just asking for your expertise on the technical end of it. Was it an approvable plan?
Provided, the survey and everything, provided all the base information is accurate, yes, it was.
Okay, thanks.
Jeff, did you have more?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of the actions of the board tonight, I think that we should make it a point that this should not become the least common denominator in terms of our expectations going forward. And I hope we're all willing to commit to that. Because we can't even get a clean affidavit here. I mean, we can't even get something without, handwriting, et cetera. So not only do we have plans that are irregular. We've got an affidavit that is less than ideal. And
Well, I think that the only thing missing on the affidavit is the date for the change.
You know what?
Isn't that what, that-
Based on what I've read, since the attorney who also acted as a notary is here, maybe we could talk to him.
oh, are you the notary on this? Oh, okay. That makes it
Good.
much easier. Does anyone need Tom?
Yes, may I ask?
Oh, sure.
Get a
Tom,
microphone.
Al has a question for you.
Yeah,
Hey, Tom,
yes.
did Wade witness all the soil testing for the drainage?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Sorry.
He did. And prior to the closing of the meeting, you said that the Pondville drainage was oversized, and that if we did test holes in it before construction, we could reduce it significantly. Do you recall that?
Yes, I think the soil information that was used in the design was actually from across the street, or at least a portion of it was. And the soil is actually better on this site than across the street, so it is a possibility if you were to do additional testing that the size of the facilities could be reduced, yes.
And about an hour ago, when you and I finally spoke last, you told me that you didn't have a problem with the surveying. After speaking with Mr. O'Driscoll, you didn't have a problem with any engineering on the plan, and you would recommend the plan for endorsement. Do you still stand by that statement of an hour ago?
Well, we don't recommend plans for endorsement. That's up to the board. But I think I said to you that I accepted the surveyor's explanation as to why there were no changes, which is what I've discussed tonight. And as I said to Peter, I think the ultimate engineering of the plan is approvable.
Thank you, Tom.
Right.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank
Anyone
you,
else
Tom.
have a comments for Tom before we say goodbye?
No.
No. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Enjoy
All
the
right,
rest of
you're
your
very
weekend.
Yeah, have a nice
Bye.
weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Okay, now the only other question is the affidavit. Is that the, got a copy?
I only have 2 copies. I gave one to Steve.
I'm reading it.
Yeah, she's got it over there.
I think the only other thing that council said was that the cover sheet of the drawing should show a revision date as to when the engineer and surveyor signed and stamped the plan.
Yeah. Now we should have asked Tom, is it appropriate for that to be added by Mr. Quiglieri?
I think, as long as I think it's more important that it's on the sheet rather than who puts it on. I mean, we should have a document reflecting that change.
Oh,
That's
all
my
right.
opinion.
Who handled the plans with Mr. Millard? Was it you, Lou?
Well, the plans I did.
For like taking off the title block and stuff like that.
I met with Jim weekly.
No, but I mean, between Tuesday and tonight, who physically made is that what you're asking? Who physically made those
Is that the
changes?
revision you're referring
That-
to,
is
or
that-
was it an earlier revision?
Legal counsel says the cover sheet does not show a recent revision date as to when the engineer and surveyor signed and stamped the plans.
Oh, okay. So that's what it is. When there was a change in the engineer, there's no revision date for the change in the engineer, and there's no revision date for removing the.
She didn't care about the
name.
title block. She
Didn't
just
care about that?
just basically when they were stamped and signed.
And I asked that question, and they said that I think he signed the date on the stamp, didn't he?
O'Driscoll does.
Yeah.
Millard does not.
That's the problem. He didn't.
Millard doesn't date any
Date
of
the
the
stamp.
signatures. So, and she just says the cover sheet. She's not saying that every sheet needs
Right.
to reflect that. I think it's just important. I'd like it documented on the plan. I don't care if we
Do you know
can't
what the
write it
dates
in,
were
but
that?
It was 3 weeks ago.
Well, you could do it as per, the affidavit date and I think O'Driscoll's date match, do they or not? No, they don't. What's O'Driscoll's date, Walter? It should be on the front.
Driscoll's date is 11/21.
Okay, that doesn't match, and this is 11/25.
Under Millard's signature, there are a few characters. I don't know
says,
what they
civil.
stand for.
It says civil, meaning he's,
Civil?
meaning
Yeah,
he's
they
civil
normally
engineer.
write under their signature, it's a state reg, what they're actually attesting to at that
Fair
time.
enough, yeah. Okay.
So if it's structural, they write structural.
Understood.
That is the only other item I see under her recommendations to us before we endorse.
So we have the notary here, so that can simplify that issue. But and you have the date, because if we want to have the revision put on there, we're not going to revise it. You're going to have to revise it yourself. But do you know the exact date that it was done? When it was revised?
When did I
Are
speak?
you asking for the day that he signed it? Is that what you're asking?
The day that these plans were
That the
revised to
surveyors-
reflect the
The day the surveyor signed and stamped the drawing.
Right.
The surveyor
So, yeah,
dated his
he
signature.
did.
so
So It's
we're all
Millard
set.
that hasn't dated,
It-
the
It's
engineer.
Millard that doesn't have
The
the
engineer.
date
Yeah.
on it, yeah.
The date, Mr.
Oh, yeah, it
Millard.
says engineer and surveyor.
Right, so we don't have dates for both of those, but do you must know when one did their work and the other one did his
Yeah,
work.
Millard did it, I gotta check.
Although it would be only one revision date. It would be the most recent revision, right? So,
Well, by default.
by default,
That's-
whoever did it last is the
Oh, it was-
revision
it was,
date.
O'Driscoll.
Okay, then
Yeah, he
then
would've
we
done-
need a revision date for Al
So
Driscoll.
by I mean that, there's a block
Is that his
down
name?
here
Yeah.
of all your
No, no, no,
revisions. You'd
I-
have to have one dated 11/21/13, and the revision should be revised signature/stamp on plans. That's what I would recommend.
Yes.
I need
Well,
a drink, I need a drink
copy
before
the
this.
format that copy the format
hand's
that's on
shaking.
there, exactly.
And then if we want to go over, somebody want to review the affidavit, I can read to you the different things that the
11:21.
attorney wanted it to reflect. I believe it is
Do
reflecting
you
it
have a
now.
copy of your,
Okay.
You know what,
sh-
so he can respond, why don't you give him the mic?
Yeah.
Why don't you grab that
Oh,
mic?
Al's got the mic.
It's not for here, it's for the TV.
So the first statement, yes.
Okay.
Pull up the chair.
Oh, I can sit at the table?
Yes, you can.
That's awesome.
The first statement is under that top paragraph in blue handwriting, the penalties and perjury.
Right.
Appears to have been added at a later date, but that addition is undated.
That's,
That was
yeah,
the first
that
comment.
that was the comment that I remembered specifically, that was the thing that was
Or,
undated.
or if it wasn't.
This was added, but it was certainly not from this date.
Understood. So, the genesis of this was Mr. Millard's desire to express to the board that he personally, as a professional engineer, prepared and/or reviewed or oversaw the preparation of these plans. This letter, dated 11/25/13, was prepared by him, signed by him, and dated by him on the 28th of November 2013. As I understand it, your board convened on the 3rd,
Yes.
earlier this week?
Yep.
And from that meeting, although I was not present, I was told that you requested two things. One of them was that Mr. Millard's letter to your attention be signed under the penalties of perjury and be notarized. I was asked by my client, Mr. Quaglieri, to visit with Mr. Millard on, Alan, Wednesday? Did we go there?
Yes.
On Wednesday of this week, I personally went to Mr. Millard's home office in Westwood. I met with him. I verified his identity by looking at his Mass-issued driver's license. I asked him if I could do two things to this document, the first of which was to provide that he's signing it under the pains and penalties of perjury. I actually explained what that meant, and he consented to me adding that language in my own handwriting on this document. I then asked him if I could notarize this by asking him to acknowledge that it's his free act and deed, and he said yes, and he did acknowledge this as his free act and deed. I then added the appropriate notary public language confirming that, signed the document, provided my notary stamp and seal. And that was all done in my presence on Wednesday of this week, as to both letters. They're identical.
Well, I know the town council's issue is not, where I work, if you change a document, you initial it and you date it. Every time.
So why don't I, and since I'm the notary of record here, why don't I date my notarization?
Yeah, is the original here? Do you have?
No, these are just copies.
These are
Well, unless-
copies.
Unless
Do
you
you
have
have
the
the-
I
original.
don't have the originals.
Who's got the original?
No, I think those are the originals. That's blue, right?
Well, this is I just printed this tonight off of my computer.
If you find the originals, I'll date them for you right here at the table.
Well, while we search for the originals, which we may not have here,
Okay?
can you explain to me something, what he might have said
Well, who gets the original?
to you
We
regarding
would.
the
We would.
blatant contradiction
I
that
don't
he
know
outlines
if the
here in
originals
the
ever
upper
came in,
part of the
but-
document, where he said,
Council-
under
the first time
investigation, I
saw
said
it.
I didn't get involved with these plans.
That was not my purpose for the visit.
I understand. Did
I
he
didn't
say-
inquire.
And he did
that
not
was
say a
not
thing?
That was not discussed at all.
Okay.
Now, what was your issue there, Walter?
Well, there was an initial investigation with this fraudulent Dover. He came to the police station and testified. And he said at that time that he had nothing to do with the plans. Then in this statement, he said, to the contrary, I was involved with the preparation and the approval and the review, notwithstanding what I said to the police department some time ago. And I mean, that's night and day. I mean, so something's kaflooey, and I just didn't know what he may have said to you about that, if anything, and apparently he said nothing.
That was not discussed, number one. Number two, I've been involved in the active litigation with your town council. I've been writing to her, emailing her, and telephoning her for 9 days, asking for information about what investigations have been done and for documentation to support that investigation. The first response I ever got from her was this evening at 6 o'clock, where she wrote me a one-line email that said, I don't know what the planning board's going to do tonight, good luck. I wish I could tell you what's behind the inconsistency, but until I see what the first statement says and what it looks like and under what circumstances it was given, I can't address if there is even an inconsistency.
Just thought you might have had some knowledge of it.
No, no, doesn't
Well, I
show
mean,
us
it's-
anything.
I've been asking for that statement to the police for weeks.
Well, I mean, if that's not something you could answer, perhaps Mr. Quaglieri could answer that question in terms of what was Mr. Millard's role in the project, I guess. I mean, it's a fair question. I mean, we've got something here which seems to be in conflict with information that we received.
As best as I could tell, his role was as stated in this letter. Why would he sign this under the penalties of perjury and acknowledge it as his free act indeed, unless that's what he did?
Listen, I was taken down to the police station and accused of a crime, Jeff. And so, no, you're going to want to hear this for the reason I'm not going to answer that question. You asked me to answer a question. So I was accused, it was made-up evidence, the detective said to me there was an affidavit signed against me, and guess what? All that was false. That was just a trick to take an innocent person and try to get them to confess for something that he didn't do.
That's the Reed technique. It's a
Well, that's
technique
great.
that
That's a
they-
great technique. So you want me to sit here and answer that question now?
I'm just saying.
I have
that
no trust
I don't
whatsoever at
know-
this point,
no,
okay?
I think it's a fair
It's a
question.
little offensive
because
that you even asked it
we
at
have,
this point.
let me understand this. We have a professional engineer stamp from Howard Millard, and I don't have anybody that can tell me what Howard Millard did, other than a piece of paper in front of me. Explain that to me.
Howard Millard can tell you, and he has in writing.
Has
That's
anybody ever told you
pretty
what,
weak in-
has
in-
anybody ever told you what
An engineer
United
gets
Consultants
done.
engineers done?
Yeah, they usually come in front of us and talk to us.
They're engineers from Methuen. He hasn't attended a meeting here and I don't know how, you wouldn't
No,
know
that's
him?
not.
That is
That's not
true.
Go into the records and tell you when the last time they were here.
No, the representatives are here.
Well, okay.
I
Fair
don't,
enough.
I don't think it's an unfair
We're going backwards.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an unfair question because you have to understand that the moment we're at right now, which is we've been given advice as a board, which I take as somebody who holds my own license professionally. I have a lot at stake for decisions that I make at this table. So we've been told that Mr. Millard has made inconsistent statements regarding his review and preparation of the plans. That's the first piece of advice given to us tonight. I don't think it's unfair for us to say, you had a contract with this man, you're paying this man, was from your knowledge and participation in making these set of plans, was he involved? It's a simple question. No one's trying to get you on the hook. We're not here in front of a court of law. We're not here in front of a judge. We have a lawyer here, but that's not our intent, is to make a decision as a board to how confident we feel about these drawings. And I think I think for you to get that defensive is actually insulting. We got to make a good judgment decision here. We got a lot of different information. If you want me to make a decision based on that reaction, I'm going to say, I ain't signing tonight.
Well,
give me confidence that these plans are legit and it was a legitimate process. If you want to say we're trying to hook you in here, Al, then I'm saying I'm out. I'm out of the game too then. I'm not playing. Come clean, make it clear, make it consistent. I ain't playing games.
I don't know what come clean means.
It means answer the question and don't play games about it.
I think we've been pretty clear.
It's just
Howard
a question.
Millard,
When did the review take
I-
place, I guess, as consulting engineer by Mr. Millard?
once I found out about Dover Land Surveying and the issues they had, I took the plans, I brought them to Howard, and he reviewed all the plans. I said, Howard, are these acceptable? Are these all meet your specification guidelines? Did you stamp that drainage report? And the answer was yes. And he gave me back the plans after 3 days of review and calculations and said, these plans are good, here you go, and I paid him.
Thank you. Perfect.
For which, by the way, we asked Mr. Millard to give us an invoice describing those services, which he did, and Mr. Quaglieri gave him a check in payment for those services, for which Alan, I'm sure,
That's
can
what I
find a
was-
copy.
That's what I was looking for.
That's what
So
I...
that's
all it was.
Great information.
And I wish we
You
could
could sit
answer
in the
your,
police station, Steve.
Yeah.
I wish we could answer your concerns about the
We're not the police
inconsistencies, but, frankly, we've been asking to see it, and nobody will show it to us. So until somebody shows me a document where I can measure it against this, I can't respond to
Well,
questions about
It
inconsistencies.
must be one of those ongoing investigations where they're reluctant to release evidence until they've decided.
Or maybe it's not as inconsistent as we're being told it
Well,
is.
it may not be.
You
but
know?
Neither of us know that, one way or the other. But that statement is very helpful, what he just said.
I've spent week after week with him since this issue.
And I specifically counseled him, get an invoice describing Howard Services, have it dated, give him a check directly in payment so that there is an engineer-client relationship of record here.
And you even accompanied me to his house.
I did. I've been to his house 3 times, I think, now. And he seems to be a very likable guy, elderly, but lucid and professionally competent. We talked about a lot of projects where we had common clients. He knows what he's doing.
He designed my building on 1A. I worked with him hand in hand on that whole building. He designed Rocco Plaza.
Rocco's? Yeah.
No, the one on 1A in Walpole. He's designed multiple buildings for me. This guy's as sharp as they come. I didn't control what Dover did. I hired somebody.
The most salient question we can ask is the engineering sound? Are you guys, as a board, satisfied that the engineering is sound? If you are,
Are there
I'd
any-
suggest respectfully you should endorse the plans.
Are there any other issues? Do you have any other ones?
No, I think I just like to know, Al, if you agree that not ideal in terms of where we're at and what, the board is being asked to do. It's not ideal. Do you agree? I mean, whether we sign them or not, do you at least agree?
I agree. Nothing's been ideal
Okay.
since that day I was
Thank
called
you.
to the police
Thank you.
station.
Thank you.
All right, it's been a nightmare.
Okay, I appreciate you.
Well, at least our
Thank you.
hearings before that were a nightmare.
They were
We've
great.
we've been proactive in trying to address
Ask
the
my
issue,
wife, ask
I
my
think,
wife
too.
how much sleep I've lost over this.
I hope the board can acknowledge that we've been proactive. Nobody called us up and said, you better get the engineering and/or surveying redone because there's a problem coming down the pike. We took it upon ourselves to evaluate the circumstances, and on my advice, I said, fire Dover, hire a new engineer. I happen to have had a previous relationship with O'Driscoll. I know him to be terribly competent, terribly professional, was in the meeting at which Alan hired him, and I explained to him all the circumstances, and I said, we're going to need special language on these plans, that you did your own work, that it's done in conformance with the applicable standards, and we need to disassociate you from Dover and their previous work. I want this to be as squeaky clean as it can be.
If you gave him that advice and he followed it on the land surveyor, why did you not give him the same advice on the engineer?
Well, because Mr. O'Driscoll's the surveyor, it's not the engineer.
Well, I
He
understand.
certifies the surveying.
Yes, but the survey is not the issue. The engineering is the issue.
And I suggested through Alan that Mr. Millard draft a letter in his own words
No,
that
but
certifies
that's not
the
my
engineering.
question. My question is, why did you not say, divorce yourself from Millard, who worked with Dover Dover, and go find John Smith?
I can answer that, because Howard Millard has had a direct relationship with me previous on other buildings that Dover Land Survey had nothing to do with. The building in Walpole, John Anderson did all the land surveying work, and Howard did the design work.
Right.
He works with many surveyors around the area. So, I mean, this guy is as competent and has been working on projects of mine. He stamps our septic walls. My wife is a registered sanitarian, and she designs the plans, and he stamps the walls. This relationship goes back. I just didn't take custody of this because I assumed that we had a competent relationship. I go out and work all day, I pay my bills, and I attend the meetings at night. I don't babysit the plans. But I started to the minute I realized there was a problem.
I understand. Thank you. That's helpful.
More comfortable?
Yes.
More comfortable? Yes. Someone want to make a motion to endorse the plans?
I will.
Michelle's been very verbal this evening, so Michelle, why don't you make the motion?
I'm gonna need the plans in front of me.
Keep that there.
Now, we only need the Zero Valley Street
Yep. We're not
side
gonna
tonight.
touch
We
That's
it.
the
don't-
only thing we're posted for, Steve.
have to go through this again?
We'll do it at the next meeting, right?
But we're only posted for one item.
So,
Yeah, oh, we are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't look at the posting.
Oh, yeah.
I just,
It's Friday night.
well, I thought the one item was the two of them originally, but.
Okay. Make a motion that we endorse the plans for the site development of Pondville Plaza with the most recent revision date of 11/21/13, based on our full discussion tonight, and accept the affidavit as part of the set of plans.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Now, where's the original affidavit?
We'll find it if
That's easy.
we delivered it.
I'll get it to you.
You scan it and send it to
I
me?
think
so
I
you-
scanned it and sent it to you.
So you have the
Yeah.
original.
So I must
So
have the original.
you can bring me the original, we'll put it on file.
Well, you could even send it certified as a true copy. I mean, there's.
I'd be glad to on one of these copies if you'd like me to. And would you, we never answered the question. Do you want me to date the day I acknowledged his signature?
I think that makes
Yes.
sense.
I'd be happy to.
You know what, to be honest, and I don't have a problem with you doing that, but dotting the i's and crossing the t's, I'd like the original ink signature on it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So find the
Once we get
originals.
the original.
I will date them the day I took his acknowledgement,
Yep,
and we'll deliver those to you.
okay.
Does, at the risk of bringing up, opening worm cans here,
Oh, if it's outside the scope of
Quick,
what we're
close the
talking about.
meeting.
We're not talking about it.
would the board be kind enough to communicate your action tonight to Attorney Patricia Cantor of Copeland and Page?
It's a public record.
Betsy?
I can email her as we speak.
And I will follow up with her in terms of our pending litigation, because we have to report to the judge, and he's been
There's,
he's been hovering,
Go ahead.
I think is a word to use.
Keep going.
I pulled up that land court, masscourts.org, and read it earlier today. You guys had a telephone conversation with the
want
judge
me
on
to
the
pass it to
3rd?
you?
And we have another scheduled.
Okay.
And I would very much like to report to the
You
judge.
can do the messenger.
It's actually online, Al, everything that happens, so.
Well, I just want to say that in terms of my actions tonight, have nothing to do with that. In terms of, what the judge has said to either of the parties, my actions are based on the fact that I'd like to see the property develop.
Did you sign this one?
And
Yeah.
we believe,
Oh, up there,
I guess
okay.
collectively,
It
that
changes on every page.
Okay.
Sometimes
have
it's
here
high, sometimes
is good enough.
not in-
It's not ideal, but it's good enough, so.
And that
in
acknowledgement
terms
was
of-
made in your
I
open
think
meeting,
we
right?
need to,
We're not taking those-
we may want to do this without prejudice, Steve. I mean, I don't know, because we have other legal proceedings taking place involving the town in terms of the appeal with the land court. So,
Well,
That
again,
may be-
this is a planning board function,
Yeah.
it's not a ZBA
Yeah,
appeal. They're two
I
separate.
kept it
It doesn't
completely
diverge.
separate, yeah.
no, but in terms of the actions of one, I think that's what the gentleman is asking, why he'd like to report back to Patricia Cantor.
I'd like her to know that you formally acted in favor of endorsing these. That's another step
What
to...
was the basis of the ZBA appeal, then?
I don't think there is a basis.
Well, see, that's where I'm not suggesting that there is no basis for
But
that.
those are legal questions for Patricia and I to deal with.
Right, that's true.
And those are questions that the judge has asked us to answer, and that we need to answer to him this coming week. And having her vested with the knowledge that your board acted the way it did tonight is helpful, if nothing else, so that she's completely up to speed as to what's happened. And she's in a very unique role. I mean, she's representing the named plaintiff in that case, who's Mr. Bullock, I believe. Your fellow board members over in the ZBA office are the named defendants in that case, among other people.
Just for a little education, I know we're getting a little far afield while we're waiting to sign. Why would the building inspector or zoning enforcement officer be the named plaintiff? I was just curious.
The building commissioner, by definition in the statute, is the chief zoning enforcement officer for the town.
Okay, and that's why he's the...
So they've characterized the alleged improprieties here as giving rise to a zoning issue.
Okay.
I think that's the position she's taking. The problem is, they're alleged improprieties, and I hope you appreciate that's the position we have to take in court.
We have to sign bets.
It's not, like we said, this is not ideal,
It's not.
what we're looking at here.
Um,
Just
slide this
sign me in all the sheets.
Just don't sign, we're not signing any on Leo's.
Sign 242.
Yeah, take Leo's away so they don't get confused.
So last point of order, while you sign away, is, once we deliver those affidavits to you, is there any impediment to us receiving back the Mylars for recording?
No. We were discussing holding them because we weren't sure about all the issues that we had brought up, but I don't think that we're going to be holding these, are they?
I took them
No,
away.
it's over there, isn't it?
Sorry.
Right.
I was like, oh.
Michelle
Now, my
recognizes our
recollection is that
limitations.
we're not planning on holding these, that we're just going to release these, right?
For you, Peter.
I know.
Not multitasking.
She knows better.
Anyone have any other information that says that my recollection is incorrect?
No?
Okay.
You'll bring me paper copies?
Are you on this yet, Jeff?
No.
There you go. Let me get
Do it.
got one, Steve.
You know I want this project, you know, and that's the irony of it. That we, I think we showed due diligence. I think we tried to move this along and I think fast track it, and I think I was feeling very good about it until we ran into the complication here caused by Dover land surveying.
They changed position in every drawing. Yeah, right.
Why am I tired?
Only because you've worked all week.
Wow, that's true. And I left to work early.
Do you have another marker to This one is
Yeah.
barely writing.
Michelle, you can go now, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
No, we
Thank
were
you.
officially closed, so.
Yeah.
Do we close the hearing?
We haven't closed it, but we can.
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Second,
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There you go, now you can leave without.
Merry Christmas, Al.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys meeting on a Friday like this.
No, we closed it.
Just close it. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.